Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here. So the Trey Hendrickson saga just took another turn. Could the Washington Commanders still be interested in trading for him? Why I personally wouldn't. Let's talk about it. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, notification bell as well. Comment down below if you would trade for him. I know some people are sick of talking about Trey Hendrickson. Why are we talking about him? He's not going to get traded. And, I get that. And this will probably be the last Trey Hendrickson video until something more concrete comes out. But, people were asking me about it, so I'll go ahead and talk about it. I saw some other Commanders creators, Street Scorers and Commanders chat also post about it, but I'm going to give you guys my own thoughts about it, what the trade compensation could be, how much we would give up, and if I would do it. So he went on the Pat McAfee show, talked about it, and the owner of the Bengals talked to her. She said he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I think some of it is on him to be happy at some point, and if he's not, that's what holds it up sometimes. We have all the respect in the world for him. He's been a great player. We're happy to have him, and so maybe we'll find a way to get something to work. That was the EVP Katie Blackburn on Trey Hendrickson's contract status. So pretty bold remarks, kind of crazy to say about a player that is your best player on defense, probably your third best player on the team behind Burrow and Jamar Chase. He's better than T. Higgins for his position for sure. It's not even close. He's just wanting to get paid what he's worth, and they said he should be happy at certain rates. Well, those rates for the Bengals, that might be 60-70% of what he's worth. And why would he do that when he's worth more? And he said on the show, when I say the communication has been poor, I mean that it's been here and there. We don't have any desire to be the highest paid, and we've tried to be as patient as possible. So seems like he's a really patient, cool guy, chill guy, but it seems like he is frustrated. And I could definitely see some team trading for him. I just don't think that's going to be the Commanders at this point with their draft capital. But again, I think that it's looking like he will get traded probably on draft night. Also, I'll talk about some players the Commanders have recently met with. But for me, why I don't think the Commanders should trade for him, they have 5 picks in this draft. They already don't have a lot of picks to start with. And then you got to think, you got to add on those picks for Trey Hendrickson, which apparently they wanted like a day one or, first round pick and more. That's definitely not happening. But even like a second round pick, the Commanders don't have a lot of picks. So, if they give up, a second round pick plus for Trey Hendrickson, they're just not going to have a draft. And, they're still a young team. You want to build for the future. And, not saying Trey Hendrickson's, super old, but he's 30 years old, and that's not necessarily building for the future. And they've made a lot of, more short-term moves recently. Marshawn Lattimore, Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil, not necessarily, but, an older-ish player that they traded for. So they made a lot of those moves, and, the goal is to get younger. So, you don't want to be having a bunch of guys that are on their second, third, fourth contracts. And for me, I just think it makes sense to, look elsewhere for the edge rusher position. There were some guys that maybe they could have gone after, in free agency, even in the trade market, that it didn't work out. Maybe they tried to go for Max Crosby, Myles Garrett. It just didn't work out. And, that's fine. At this point, though, after the Laramie Tunsil trade, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to trade for Trey Hendrickson after trading for Laramie Tunsil, where Laramie Tunsil, not only is it a decent amount of cap space that he takes up, but then also it's just the draft picks. And, you gave up, I can't even remember at this point, I believe it was like a second, third, and like a future fifth or something for Hendrickson, and they got like a fourth, or not for Hendrickson, for Tunsil, and they got like a 4th round pick back, something like that. They might have given up a 7th round pick too. But you give up all those picks, and, you already gave up picks for Lattimore, in the Lattimore trade. You gave up picks for one pick for Deebo. So it's not a lot, each, but when you combine all of them, it does start to add up a little bit, and you think about maybe not going for a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who has been a beast. He's the leading sack guy in the NFL the last 2 years. 35 sacks in the last 2 years is That's a lot. That's a lot. And, he has forced fumbles, 5 in the last 2 years. 11 in the last 4 years, averaging basically 3 a year. I mean, he has 5 seasons in a row of very good play. The 1 year that he, it wasn't great, and it was still 8 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. So he's had a pretty great career the last 6-ish years, or last 5 years with the Bengals, and then 1 year with the Saints where it was really good football. But just again, for me, I don't think it makes sense in terms of the trade compensation, considering what the Commanders have right now in assets, and then also you're gonna have to pay him a lot of money. $30+ million is my guess for Trey Hendrickson. And I'm not saying he's not worth it, but with these guys that you have under contract, it just right now it might not make the most sense in the world to trade for Trey Hendrickson. That's just me. It seems like it keeps taking more turns and less momentum for a deal to get done, with Hendrickson being frustrated with these comments that the exec made. But things could change. Things could change for sure with the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson. They did with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in the Bengals, but we're just going to have to wait and see. All right, moving on from Trey Hendrickson, and, the Commanders have other options in the draft, or, other options for edge rusher, and that could be in the draft. And, a guy like Mike Green, James Pierce, those guys would be good options, just probably won't happen in, they probably won't be there at 29. I would love for it to happen. I just don't think those guys will be there at 29. But you never know. Maybe a guy will fall. There's other options too. Femi from UCLA, they've been some ties to him. I think 29 is too rich for him, but maybe you can trade back, get him. Landon Jackson, there's a bunch of names out there. The Boston College guy. There's a lot of guys that the Commanders could go after in the first round at the edge rusher position. There's some tackles as well. Running backs, maybe they want to trade back and get a running back in the second round. Receiver, Ibuka, Golden, Tet McMillan. There's a lot of options out there. Commanders hosted a dinner with Jackson State strong safety Robert McDaniel at his pro day last week, per source. They met him at the HBCU Combine. He's one of the top HBCU players in the draft. Not going to lie and say I know anything about him besides the information presented here by Josh Taylor. But, shout out to Josh Taylor for putting this out there. But just a guy, maybe keep your eye out for him, and, in the draft or undrafted free agent. I don't know where he is, slotted to be picked. But just someone to watch out for. Maybe they bring him in somewhere. But let's see. I'll also go over some other things because there's been some other players the Commanders have been, technically interested in. Willie Lampkin, interior offensive line for the Tar Heels, was, a good player at the Senior Bowl, and, has had some interest from the Commanders and several other teams. So that's just another player to watch out for. There's a long list of different guys that the Commanders have met with. Made a video about that around a week ago. If you want to check that out, I'll make an updated one in the next, in the coming weeks. I do want to post some draft content. I don't know. I just haven't. I don't know. We'll see. I'll do a mock draft for sure. I've been here and there with draft content. I'll make a video about something but still talk about draft stuff like I did today. And there have been some videos where I just talk about draft stuff. So if you guys are interested in specific stuff that you want me to talk about, cover, comment that down below. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.